Hey there, everybody. Good evening. Sorry, I lost track of my microphone there. It is Tuesday, October 30th, 2018. This is Walking with God. I am your host, Kyle Walker. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. Back again by myself, like I was last week. No guest tonight. Kind of feels like October has lasted a couple months now. This is like the longest month ever. I'm sorry, I keep peeking in the screen to make sure that we're working, but we've got our first person in, so we are good to go. I We're going to start tonight, and of course, you can kind of guess what we're going to talk about with what's happening in the world lately. But as you can see, and I'm going to get on my soapbox here for a moment, I've taken down all the Halloween decorations that I had going on here in the man cave, and the reason I took those down is really anymore. If you want to be scared, you really don't need Halloween to do it. We're getting increasingly scary ourselves without adding the extra fun of Halloween. Really, I mean, we've got things going on in this country and on the news that are absolutely terrifying. So I'm boycotting Halloween, at least for today and tomorrow, while we kind of sort this out. You know, we've got bombs and fake bombs and poisoned letters being sent to political figures on both sides of the party lines. You know, we've been worked into such a frenzy by our government and by the mainstream media that we are all just kind of acting a fool right now. And the thing that really gets me, again, if you watch the news, you'll see that we are at each other's throats and that this country is an eyelash away from the next civil war, and it's going to be Republicans against Democrats, and there's going to be someone actually did use the term, there will be blood in the streets. Really? I don't know about all that. I do think that for the sake of ratings, we are being worked up into such a frenzy as a society that it's getting to the point of ridiculousness. You know, if you want to turn on your news, you're going to go to, I'll drop names. I don't care. No one sponsors me through a corporation, but like MSNBC. If you're a far left person and you're watching MSNBC, then you're going to get all the far left news. If you're a far right person, you're going to turn on Fox News and you're going to get all the far right news. And if you listen to either of these two organizations, they're going to tell you that we are just getting infinitely closer to just declaring all-out war on each other. And I really think that that's kind of ridiculous. You know, if you turn off the televisions and you walk outside for a couple minutes and talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, talk to your family, you're going to see that the situation is not nearly as dire as they would lead you to believe. I can talk to any of my friends, two of which I was golfing with on Sunday, who are of complete opposite political beliefs than I am, and we still had a great time playing golf. Nobody threatened to beat someone else over the head with a club simply because of the way that they vote. So that is my one beef today. I have just been so frustrated with the climate on the TV right now. And again, it's all the political stuff. We have the midterm elections coming up, and so things have just gotten really bad. So I'm not going to go out of my way to put up the Halloween decorations or to scare myself, because really society is kind of doing it for me. And that is where we're going to really kind of pick up into today. You know, you can see by the hat that I'm wearing, we've had another issue arise in this country that leads me to wear a hat tonight that I was not planning on, this of course being for Pittsburgh, because over the weekend there was yet another huge national tragedy that took place in Pittsburgh. So we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight. We were greeted with another story of a man who, again, on this show, we don't give the names of these people who do these things. He walked into a Jewish synagogue, opened fire on the people who were worshiping, and this human piece of filth is responsible for killing 11 people and injuring 6 more. That included 4 police officers. Here is from a news site. Here is what they are talking about, or what the charges against this individual is. He faces 11 counts of criminal homicide, 6 counts of aggravated assault, and 13 counts of ethnic intimidation, in addition to federal counts that include weapons offenses and hate crime charges. Federal prosecutors are expected to seek the death penalty against him. So that is the caliber of person with which we are working with tonight. It is just a terrible situation. But before I go too far down the rabbit hole, and before any of us do, I know that I'm not supposed to judge, as I'm not a judge here on earth. And again, we talked about this one of the times when Joe was on. We've got our judges and our people of power here, and then of course we have our vertical judge and our vertical person who will judge our lives and what we do. I'm not either of those. I am not the judge here, and I am certainly not the judge up there. So I am going to do my best not to condemn this man out of my own personal anger or feelings of hurt. But I will say this, and this is how I'm going to try and preface this. Not really preface, but explain it. I hope that this person receives absolutely everything his actions warrant by both a judge here and the judge up there. If he's found guilty here, let him face the maximum possible sentence. And if he's found guilty in the eyes of the big man upstairs, well, then I think we kind of understand where he's going to be going after that. So that's one of my cautions to everyone. Don't rush to judge, because again, I can't judge people based on their sins, because ultimately all of our sins are pretty much the same. A sin is a sin, and I know that I've been guilty of a few. So let's just say that when he is in front of the legal system here, I hope he gets all that he deserves. And then of course, when he is facing the ultimate judge, I hope again that he gets everything that he has coming to him. So what I'm going to kind of dive into tonight, as you can tell, I'm not completely on my game tonight. I've really struggled with how to present this, as has been the case a lot of times when we have to talk about national tragedies. I don't know the right tone or the right way to approach it, because I'm trying to approach this even keel and kind of straight down the middle. But of course, my own personal opinion goes extreme in other directions. So I'm doing my best to not completely fly off the handle here, but these things are upsetting. Whether it be the Las Vegas shooting from a year ago, which has been just a little over a year, or this, or any of the other shootings that we have, it's hard to maintain that level of balance, or not flying off the handle, as someone who loathes these events and is a big fan of justice, like I am, and most of you are, probably all of you. But when something like this happens, a shooting in Pittsburgh, or the shooting in Vegas, or the school shootings, what many of the questioning Christians, or just the full-on non-believers, they throw the same question out after every one of these events. Oh, thank you. Someone likes my hat. Thank you. Appreciate it. The question that you always get from the non-believers and then from the questioning Christians is, where was God? So every time, and you hear it all the time, every time there's a terrible event, oh, well, where was God? Where was God in this situation? Why did he allow this to happen? We've had other episodes where we discussed that, but we're going to kind of reapproach it here, because that is the question that we get all the time. You hear it all the time. And so I will be the first to admit that in many of these situations, and the Las Vegas shooting from last year is a perfect example, I am not smart enough to know where God is working. Like I can't look at that situation and say, oh, I see God working right there, because I just see the horror of it. I just see the tragedy of it. So I couldn't tell you where he was at work in the Las Vegas situation. People want to think that there's going to be this just divine force that is going to stop the shooter from committing these terrible acts. And unfortunately, in my opinion, I don't think that's how this works. Okay, when God gave us the free will, and the free will to kind of do what we're going to do, that is free will to do things that are horrible and terrible and horrific. Unfortunately, that's kind of part and parcel with it. If you're going to have this free will that God has given to us, people are going to use it for the wrong things, and they're going to do terrible things, as we've seen all throughout the course of history. But what I've learned and what I've seen is that we will often see God's work, and again, in my opinion, after the fact. We're going to see it after something this terrible. And I don't see it every time, but in this case of our most recent tragedy, the one in Pittsburgh, I really do feel like I've seen where God is working in this situation, and that's kind of what I want to share tonight. So let me explain. There was an article, and I'm going to read it to you. I'm going to read this article to you word for word, because when I read it, I couldn't believe it. My jaw hit the floor. And I'm like, yes, that is where God is working. And it was so impressive to me. Okay, so this is about the Pittsburgh situation. This is about this terrible, in my opinion, terrible person who goes into a Jewish synagogue, kills 11 people, wounds 4 officers, wounds 6 people, and then he himself was injured. He was not killed during this. He himself was injured during this, taken into custody after he, I guess, surrendered is what they put it. So after his shootout with the police, he is wounded. And so he is surrendered and taken into custody. And this article is what happens after that. And this is what I want to read. Credit where credit is due. This was by a journalist. Her name is, and I'm going to say this wrong and I apologize, but her name is Barnini Chakraborty. And I hope I'm seeing that right. Okay, here we go, word for word. Just when you listen to this, I think you too are going to see where God is at work in this Pittsburgh situation. Pittsburgh. Jewish doctors and nurses at the Allegheny General Hospital in Pittsburgh put their personal feelings aside to help save the life of the man who allegedly claimed he wanted to kill all the Jews as he opened fire at a synagogue and murdered 11 worshipers. And they list his name here. That I will not say. The shooter, 46, was shot multiple times himself and taken to the Allegheny General Hospital. In addition to killing 8 men and 3 women, he wounded 6 other people, including 4 police officers, before surrendering Saturday. And here's a quote. He was taken to my hospital, and he's shouting, "I want to kill all the Jews." Dr. Jeffrey Cohen, president of the Allegheny General Hospital and member of the Tree of Life Synagogue, told ABC. The first 3 people who took care of him were Jewish. Another nurse, whose father is a rabbi, came in from a mass casualty drill and took care of this gentleman. Cohen was one of the first people on the scene. He lives in the neighborhood and heard the gunfire from his house. And Cohen goes on to say, "I was standing there, and you could start hearing very quickly what was going on," he said. Just like the first responders who rushed into danger, Cohen credits his doctors, nurses, and staff for stepping up. "We are here to take care of sick people. We're not here to judge you. We're not here to ask, do you have insurance? Do you not have insurance? We're here to take care of people who need our help," he said. Cohen says he and the suspect had a brief conversation at the hospital. "When I stopped in, I asked him how he was doing. Was he in pain? And he said no, he was fine." Cohen said that the suspect then asked him who he was, and this was Cohen's response. "I said, I'm Dr. Cohen, president of the hospital. Then I turned around and left." He said the FBI agent who was guarding him said, "I don't know if I could have done that." And I said, "If you were in my shoes, I'm sure you could." In that article that I read, it was really the kind of the whole crux of tonight's show, because after reading that article, and I know that my reading it to you doesn't really do it justice, you can see where God was working in that situation. You can see that this guy who killed 11 Jewish worshipers and who was screaming, "I want to kill all the Jews," the first 3 people that he faced at the hospital were Jewish doctors and Jewish nurses. And did they sit there and say, "Well, I'm not going to save this guy. I mean, look what he did"? No, they saw a person who needed help and they helped him. Now imagine what those people and people with that heart do to those who didn't just kill 11 people, who will take the wounded kids and the wounded senior citizens and the wounded yous and the wounded me's, and they won't ask the questions. They will render the help. And that is where I see God in this situation. I mean, you think it's coincidence that the first 3 people this jerk faced were 3 Jewish people, one of whom attends that very synagogue where he was shooting? No, that is our example. That is the example that we set to, and I mean, just to throw, you can throw any of them out there, and I wish Joe was here to give you more scriptural base, but what about love thy neighbor? That's exactly what they did in that situation. This guy commits horrible acts. They do their job. They love their neighbor. They act in a more godly manner than probably I could have done in that situation. But that's what they do. And I was floored when I read this. I was floored. And then the president of the hospital, a Jewish man himself, again, who goes to that synagogue, who heard the gunshots, he's able to go in that room and ask the guy, hey, you all right? Are you in pain? Need anything? And then tells him who he is and walks away. That's not coincidence. That's God's hands in that situation. Because again, people have the free will to do stupid, terrible things. But then you have people like these, the medical staff at Allegheny General Hospital, who are just the example that we all want to be in God's love and God's grace, even in the face of the most difficult situation you can think of. Really, could you be put in a more difficult situation than what they had? And you had to know that they knew who this guy was. There was an FBI agent guarding him. This was not a mystery. This was not just we were moving so quick we didn't know what was happening. They knew exactly what was happening. They knew exactly who he was, and they did their jobs. They did what they had taken. What is it? Oh man, I'm grasping for the word here. What is it? Do no harm. And I know they have a fancy name for that, and it's escaping me at this moment. But that is what every medical professional takes, is do no harm, and that's what they did. So that was where I saw God the most in this situation. But we weren't even done yet with God working in this situation. Maybe even more profound, given the state of really the planet in which we're on right now, the political climate, the climate of the globe, whatever you want to say. Listen to what happened today. Maybe it wasn't today. Maybe it was yesterday. I apologize if I don't get the day correctly. This out of Pittsburgh, the Islamic Center of Pittsburgh. Okay, Islam, Jewish people, not always the closest of friends. That's fair enough to say. The Islamic Center of Pittsburgh has raised, at the time of this report, $70,000 for the victims' families. The families of the victims, $70,000. Again, at that time, and I am 98% sure they have raised more, but the Islamic Center of Pittsburgh is raising thousands upon thousands of dollars for the victims' families of this terrible tragedy in a synagogue affecting Jewish people. And then I want you to listen, the leader, and I did not catch his name, but the leader of the Islamic Center of Pittsburgh had this quote. Again, direct quote. Let me read it word for word. We just want you to know, we just want to know what you need. If it's people outside your next service protecting you, let us know. We'll be there. Again, that in the face of everything that goes on in this little planet of ours was huge, because the extreme Muslims, not big fans of the Jewish people. But these people, the Islamic Center of Pittsburgh, and I can't say their name enough because they deserve all the credit in the world, they want to help. They want to help the families and the victims who suffered from this horrible event. Even though they may not, religious-wise, they could probably not be farther apart than the views of Islam and the views of the Jewish faith. Yet they want to come together. And again, this is God's hands on this situation. But those two coming together in the face of this tragedy is huge. It speaks volumes. It speaks against centuries of hate and discontent. But all it takes is one jerk, one despicable human being to do something horrendous and heinous to bring these two sides together, even if only for a moment. But the scope of that is absolutely huge, and it's not something that we can do on our own. That is 100% God's hands in the situation. And let's see, Hippocratic oath. That's what I was referring to earlier. Thank you. It was in the chat window. Hippocratic oath of do no harm. So if you take a look at our doctors and nurses, you take a look at the Islamic Center of Pittsburgh, and you look at what they have done together, you can't just dismiss that. Again, I cannot always say where I see God's work in a terrible situation like this. I know it's there somewhere, but I can't always see it. I see it here, and I think it is clear as day just where he's working. I'm not trying to speak for him because I know I'm not that smart, but it's there. And so it's not really an encouragement. What happened was terrible and awful, and the loss of life is terrible and awful. Later tonight or tomorrow, I have a little picture that I'm going to put on the show's Facebook page just to honor the victims of that. It has their names, the people who perished during that tragedy. We want to honor them, and we want to respect their families in that community, which is reeling right now. But of course, it's never good. But if you look at the aftermath, if you look at what's happened and what's taken place since that terrible tragedy, there's really some amazing things happening. And I think, my personal opinion, that ultimately that community will become stronger if the people of the synagogue and the people of the Islamic Center of Pittsburgh come together to have a pancake breakfast. I don't really care. That is unprecedented, and I wish I could go eat those pancakes. But I think there's a lot that can happen, a lot of good that can happen in that community based on this tragedy. And ultimately, if we can find beauty in tragedy, then I think we're doing something right there. So that is my take. Those doctors and nurses, the president of the hospital, that's where I saw God. And just imagine if we didn't have people like that, like those people. It's tough to fathom. So I know this was kind of a heavy topic for this week, a little bit of a drag, but it's things that we need to talk about. And again, if you have opinions or beliefs of your own or things that you want to share, please hit up the chat window here on Facebook. Always send a message to the show. There are ways to comment, and I'd love to know what you think. What do you see? Where do you see God working in this situation or any of the other ones? Something that has been brought to me, it was brought to me over the weekend, is that we've kind of gotten away on this show from where we see God working. And so I really want us to get back to that. So please share with me, share with everyone who's on here, where you see God working in this situation, in a situation that you're going through, in a situation that someone else is going through. But we need to really start celebrating more what God is doing for us and what God is doing in our lives and in the lives of others that we can see. It was very kind of Joe 2 weeks ago to kind of go into where he's seen God working in my life. And I thought that was very nice of him. Of course, I did not know that was coming, so I'm glad you couldn't see how much I was like blushing and trying to not look embarrassed there, because I hate it when people say nice things about me. I don't take compliments well. But for all of you, please, let's really start to celebrate where we see God working in our lives and in the lives of others, because we need to not be afraid to point that out and bring that out to people. In the face of this horrible Pittsburgh tragedy, I see God working, and I've explained to you how I see God working, and that is not something to be sad about. That is something to celebrate, not the actual occurrence, but things that have happened since, because ultimately these things could be amazing. So that is my challenge to you all. That's what we're going to start trying to do more of, is find where the victories are, because the victories are huge. We can focus on the negatives all we want, but let's really start celebrating the victories. Next week, I don't even know what we're going to talk about next week, but I can promise you that I'm going to try and lighten things up, because I know this week was very heavy. I don't want to do heavy episode after heavy episode after heavy episode, so we'll see where Big Man takes us. I want everyone to have a great week. Let's not fall for the division that we see on our TV screens. Why don't you go talk to people before you start hating the other side? Whatever your beliefs are, trust me, things are not as dire as they appear. But by this time next week, by the time that we're on the air next week, all the polling stations will be done for the latest election. And so there's a name, and the midterm elections. There we go. Whew. The polling stations will be closed for next week by this time for the midterm elections. I encourage you to vote. You cannot complain about political climate if you do not go and cast your own vote, whatever it be. whether you're left, whether you're right, whether you're in the middle, go vote. It is your civic duty to do so. So I want to encourage you all, even if it means you don't catch this show live and you have to watch it recorded, I understand completely if you are out there and you are voting to try and really help this country out. If you don't like it, go vote. That's how you make change. So that is my encouragement to everyone. Please go vote next week. It is important. And once you have voted and you've cast your ballot, then I want you to go out there and I want you to hug someone wearing the other side's shirt. Because honestly, politics should not be driving the wedge between us that it is. All right? I love all my Democratic friends. I love all my Republican friends. And I love all my independent friends and family, whatever. So go vote. It's your duty to do so. Please, if you need to see old episodes, go to www.walkingwithgodradio.com. Clover Hill Promotions has been out there tinkering with the site. It looks amazing. I love what they're doing. The blog is out there. I keep forgetting to hype the blog. So if I don't have enough to do a show on something, I blog it. I will talk about it in the blog. So you can talk, you can read that, you can comment there, you can like it if you like it. If you don't, you don't. So I want to encourage you to go to the website, get the website traffic up, go read the blog for things that don't quite fit into the show. And always, I welcome feedback. So I think that is going to do us for tonight. Just a couple minutes early here, but that's okay. No one said this has to go a full 30 minutes. So let's go ahead and close it out in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for bringing us together tonight. Another week back together here on Facebook Live is another week that we've all been safe and we've all received your love by keeping us going. Lord, be with everyone up in Pittsburgh, with all the victims and families and the wounded and the medical personnel and everyone who wants to help. Just guide everyone, show them what you need done, and then just give them the open heart to do it. And at least in my opinion, I see where you're working up there, and it fills me with joy just to see what you're doing, even in the face of something so terrible. So Lord, keep everyone safe until we come back next week. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. All right, so next week, hopefully I can choose my own hat. We don't have any issues. As always, I want your feedback. If you would be so kind, I always appreciate it. Go to the website. Patreon is always the option. But really, we're going to start celebrating from now on where we see God working in our lives. I'm going to pose that question on Facebook, and I hope that you will all answer. Again, if you cannot donate financially, then I please ask that you share each episode that has actually affected you, that you enjoy, so that we can get our viewers up. That's all I ask. Easy peasy, right? Absolutely. Have a great week, and we will see you in 7 days.